So, hello everyone, welcome to Triaright. This is back 365. Myself Suji. So, in this session, we are going to learn how to do our constructor chaining by the help of our class name. Because in the previous session, we are already discussed how to do our constructor chaining by the help of our superclass. So now in this session, we are guys learn how to use our class name here. Okay. So before we are try to jumping into our VS Code, first we are try to write the syntax for class name while we are try to do our constructor chaining. So at that time, first you need to provide your class name, then dot our double underscore init double underscore means the constructor. Okay, so guys, while we are trying to use our class name, so make sure that if you are trying to do your constructor chaining, then inheritance is not mandatory. If you are giving, it's okay. If you are not giving also, it's okay. But here you need to mention your address of your object. Okay, so now we are trying to understand why we need to define the address of object. Suppose here we are using this super class. Okay, so here we are not using that particular address of object means self, but here it will be running and gives the perfect output. Now if I try to use our class name, so the syntax will be first you need to provide your class name, then here it will be taking one mandatory argument that is called self, because self will be store the reset object address. So guys, if you are not providing that particular self, it will be not traversing for that particular thing, because here we are using the mandatory condition that we need to inherit. But here if I try to use my class name, inheritance is not mandatory. So now first we are trying to create a class, then only at that time only we need to use our class name. Okay, so whenever we are doing our constructor chaining, we know that we need to provide at least two classes. So as of now, we are trying to take the same example as my bank version. Okay, means in my bank version 1, I have only two variables, or we can say that object variables, that is called name and phone number. If I'm trying to create a bank version 2, at that time I need to write class bank version 2. So here our inheritance is not mandatory. That's why here I'm not passing the inheritance. Okay, directly I'm trying to do my constructor chaining. So here my requirement will be I want to add my PAN number and my balance. Okay, so how to do that? Because the PAN number and my balance will be different for each and every user. Means we need to use our uncommon property. So means we are trying to use our constructor. So how to declare a constructor? By the help of our double underscore init double underscore, and this constructor will taking one mandatory argument that is called self. Okay, so here I need to specify the previous two data. So the previous two data will be name and phone number. So now I need to add one more variable called PAN number and the balance. Okay. So now before we are trying to use my super class, I need to specify the super class, then double underscore init name and phone number. Means we need to retrieve or inherit, or we can say that chaining from my previous one. Here also you need to do the same. So here you need to provide your class name. Here I need to provide my bank version 1, because here we are not using the inheritance. Also here we are trying to get the properties from my, or we can say that the properties from my bank version 1. Okay, so here I need to use my class name dot double underscore init double underscore. So guys, previously whenever we are trying to use the super class, we don't need to initialize this cell, because here we are using the inheritance. But here we are not using the inheritance, so self will be mandatory, because if I am not passing this self, then it will be not ever, it will be traversing my bank version 1. Okay, that's why here I need to provide the previous two value, because I need to retry both the things, or we can say that chaining that. So after that I need to initialize the new two variables. Okay, so here I will be writing self dot my PAN number equal to PAN, and the next one called our balance. So here I need to provide balance equal to balance. So as of now, we are just trying to initialize the variables. So now after creating the class, now my requirement will be I want to create a object. So how to create a object? First you need to provide the class name. Okay, so followed by the object name. So here my object name will be object1. Here I need to provide the class name as bank version 2, because every time whenever we are trying to update, we need to use that particular new update version only. That's why the updated version will be bank version 2. So now I need to provide all the detail. So here I provide Sujit, then the phone number I need to provide, then the PAN number, and for the balance I will be providing 20,000. Okay, so now if I try to run this one, it will only executing, but it will not provide any output. Why? Because we are not trying to print that particular things. So guys, now my requirement will be I want to print the balance as well as the name, because this name will be not available in our bank version 2. The name will be available in our version 1. So we are trying to check that the previous data will be available or it will be erased that particular thing. So whenever we are trying to access any object variable, we have only one option, that is called our object reference. If I try to use your class reference, it will gives you the error. Okay, so now we are trying to use our object reference. So first you need to provide your object reference, means obj1 dot my requirement will be I want to know the balance. Okay, so now if I try to run this one, it will be displaying me 20,000. Okay, now my requirement will be I want to know the previous version data. So at that time I need to again use my object reference. So here obj1 dot my requirement will be I want to get the name. So how the control flow will going to work, now we are trying to see. It will be gives you the result. Okay, so whenever my class and object will be created, at that time both the constructor will be getting executed. Okay, so but in this case we are using our chaining concept, or we can say that constructor chaining. So here the controller will come my first my recent, or we can say that the class where I am trying to create. So here I am using the balance. Okay, so here it will become to my bank version 2. So in my bank version 2 already balance variable will available. That's why it will be gives you the direct value. Okay, whenever it will check the name of that particular thing, but the name will be not available in my bank version 2. But I have using the chaining concept by the help of our class name. So class name will be taking our bank version 1, and it will be taking one mandatory argument, that is called self. So by the help of this self, it will be taking the bank version 1 address, and it will be comes to my bank version 1. Now we can access, or we can say that properties. So here my requirement will be I want to get the name property. Okay, so now it will be easily getting the output whatever my requirement. So in the real time also the same thing will be going to work. Okay, whenever a new version will become, the previous version data will be not deleted. It will be acquiring that property or functionality and gives you a modified version of that. Okay, so that's all about our constructor chaining. Okay, now we're trying to write the theoretical point that's available in case of our class name. Okay, so whenever we are trying to use our class name, make sure that every time you just need to provide yourself. Without providing the self, it will gives you a error only. Okay, so now if I try to see that particular example, if I try to remove this self, okay, if I am not giving this self, it will be gives you a error, because the bank version 2 don't have any name attribute, or we can say that name member. So because we are trying to use the self, that's why it will be by the help of this object reference only we can get that particular variable. Okay, that's why every time whenever we are using the by the help of our class name, self will be mandatory. Okay, so now we are trying to write all the theoretical points that will be left, because in the previous session we are already writing the points regarding our constructor chaining. Okay, so now we are write the rest 2 points that's available, that whenever we are try to doing the constructor chaining by the help of our superclass, or we can say that class name, at that time how it going to happen, each and everything we are try to write. So in the note point we are try to write the both the things. Okay, so if constructor chaining, okay, so here I am writing, if the constructor, okay, constructor chaining is done with, okay, is done with help of superclass, okay, help of superclass, then inheritance is mandatory. Okay, inheritance is mandatory. If you are not providing the inheritance, it will be not acquiring all the properties, or we can say that it will be not getting all the property, and should mention the address of that object, and should mention, okay, and should mention address of the object. Okay, now the next point will be, if constructor chaining is done help of class name, okay, if constructor chaining is done, okay, constructor chaining is done with help of, with help of class name, then inheritance is not, inheritance is not mandatory. Okay, but we should mention the address of object, but we should mention, okay, but we should mention the, okay, mention the address of the object. Okay, guys. So this is all about our chaining concept that will be helpful whenever we are try to doing our constructor chaining. Okay. So in the upcoming session, we are try to dealing with our method chaining, how the method chaining will be going to work. Means as of now, we are just try to access the properties, means the common property as well as the uncommon property. So how the functionality, or we can say that method will be chaining, that time also we are trying to see that. Okay, so that's all for this session. Thanks for watching. Triaright.